Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, along with my co host, Dr. Jen Schwanke, for another episode of Principal Matters. Man, Jen, I'm so excited for listeners to hear the conversation you're going to be having with Eric Mace this week. But before we do that, we want to begin with our question of the week. And we know that our question of the week is supported by Summer Pops Math Workbooks. Principals, when students practice math over the summer, their math scores go up. What is your summer plan this year? A great way to start is by ordering free summer workbook samples at summerpopsworkbooks.com. Jen, why don't you set the stage again, since these were questions from your students?
Right. So this is, I taught a class of graduate students who were all seeking their principal's license. These were students at The Ohio State University, and we were just chit-chatting one day, and I mentioned that I was going to have you come and be a guest speaker, and they thought that was pretty cool because of the podcast. And then, Will, I think it was you, they said we should record. And so we had students who are students in the class, all teachers, all actively working with students every single day. They came up with some questions. So this one is from Elizabeth Warville, and Elizabeth's question is related to coaching and development. What she wanted to ask us is, what role did coaching and ongoing professional development play in improving staff performance and morale at your school? So that's Elizabeth's question.
Oh, what a great question.
So that leads us actually to our next question about coaching and development. So Elizabeth, this is yours.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Warfel. I've taught first grade and third grade. My question is, what role did coaching and ongoing professional development play in improving staff performance and morale at your school?
Can I clarify or ask for a clarification? Are you asking about like coaching I received in leadership, or just coaching for my staff, or all of the above?
I'm viewing it as coaching and professional development for your staff.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen benefits in both. So I'll answer this two ways. Yes, but um, I think it's really important if you identify an area where there's needed growth and you can find somebody who's really good at coaching or PD to come in and provide that. Because a lot of times people that are providing professional development or coaching, they have the time to really develop content and instructional time and models and all the things that you may not have time to do in-house. So I will say that. But then at the same time, you've got people in-house who are just extraordinary at what they do. And if they're given the opportunity to internally teach and internally coach and internally model for other people too, that's super powerful, because I think that when you see a peer that's giving you ideas and you can hold on to those things. So I think both have been really valuable. What I would caution leaders to think about, and I'm not just saying this to you, but also anyone who may be listening to this conversation. A lot of times what happens is, if we're receiving PD or we're participating in professional development, the things we get excited about, or the things that we begin to learn, we immediately want to execute that. We want to bring it back and let's change things. Let's just do the thing I just learned. And what I've discovered is that you can really make life difficult for people if you're constantly bringing the things you're learning in and just immediately asking everybody to implement and change. So a lot of times when I see, whether it's teachers or principals receiving PD and coaching, and then they're going to come back and share it with their peers, I just try to remind them to remember your friends may not have gotten to go through the same PD you did. So be patient. Begin to implement these things for yourself first, beta test them, try them, and see how they work, then begin to share them with others. And also don't run, I think sometimes leaders will send themselves to professional development, and then they'll come back and expect everybody to buy into what they've learned. And I'm like, that's a false assumption. You should be spending as much money and resources, if you're going to be hiring professional development, sending your people to that so that they can come back and create more buy-in. And so, those are just some first thoughts, Jen, I have on that. What would you add?
I would add, this was my weakest area. I was thinking as you were talking, I don't think I always felt a day late and a dollar short in planning PD. I felt like I was so busy managing and trying to support students that professional development wasn't as much of a priority as it should have been. So proactive reflection is what I call that. Like I'm reflecting, but I know what I need to do better if I'm ever in the principal role again.
You're listening to Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast.
Principal Matters Podcast, episode 449.
Welcome, Principal Matter podcast listeners. I'm so excited today to introduce you to Eric Mace, who is going to have a lot of insight and perspective to share with all of you. I am Dr. Jen Schwanke, and I am here hosting the podcast this week and super excited to get started. So hi, Eric. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for having me. I've been such a listener for the last 4 to 5 years, even before I was in this role. So I'm a year and a half into the principal role. And I'm really excited. And if there's anything I can offer and give back to the community, give back to the listeners, I'd love to do that here.
Perfect. Yeah. And that opens up, we should tell our listeners how you and I met. And that was on a very popular Facebook principal group, which, as most people know, those groups can be either exceedingly helpful or quite toxic. And I think that everybody that does go there looks for little tips. And so finding you was such a treat. So let me tell listeners who you are, Dr. Mace. You are the proud principal of Manor Haven Elementary, a diverse K-5 school on Long Island. And Eric's leadership journey began in the Marines, where he learned the value of teamwork, service, and resilience. And then he went off and got quite a few degrees that we'll talk about in education and leadership, and then spent a decade in middle school and has just recently transitioned to Manor Haven, where he focuses on opportunity, innovation, and community. He's also a husband and a father of 2, enjoys coaching, cooking, and exploring historical sites with your family, Eric, although you did say sometimes they're not quite as delighted about those historical sites as you might be.
That is very accurate. We were just down in North Carolina, actually, and we weren't too close from a Civil War fort. So we had to make a detour to check out a Civil War fort.
And your kids are what, 7 and 2, I think you said?
Yes, Olivia is 7. She's in 2nd grade, and Everett is turning 2.
Yeah, so you're going to be that dad. You're going to be the one who's like, oh, dad's taking an exit because he saw, he saw a historic sign.
1000%. I am looking forward to embarrassing them as much as possible. But as a former social studies teacher, it's right at my alleyway and something I still enjoy.
That's great. Okay, so I have my first question or two might go in whatever order you choose. And so I was going to ask you to talk about your service in the military because you have said that it really helped shape how you approach education. So I want to know about that. And that ties to my question of your journey becoming an educator. Tell us about both of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give you a little bit of context, I'm the oldest of 7 children. And as I was going through school, I was not the strongest student, believe it or not. I was a student who looked forward to coming to school because of sports. That's really what kept me involved. And lunch and recess. Those were like the highlights of my day until I found social studies. And I found history and teachers that made history come alive, and it was engaging. And then as you go through high school, you start looking at your opportunities. I was in high school during 9/11, so that really started to shape some of my perspectives. And I was always very service orientated. And what can I do to give back to those around me? Reflecting back on it now, realizing people that gave me so many opportunities that I wasn't aware of as a 12, 13-year-old, etc. So shortly after graduating, before graduating high school, I had made the decision that I knew I wanted to continue that service. At the time, the best way to do that was enlisting the military. My stepfather and my grandfather were Army. I had a little bit of a rebellious streak. My grandmother told me I was not allowed to do the Army, so I did the Marine Corps. It really was great for me because truthfully, I was not prepared for that freedom that college provided just yet. I needed a little more discipline. And I really needed that sense of what it meant to form a team, to be a team member, and then really how to lead a team. And that, thankfully, it was the Marine Corps where I got my first opportunity to start leading, but most importantly, really start teaching. As after a while, you become an instructor, right? And it's your responsibility to lead those under your charge. And I learned really great things from the leaders I had, whether it was empathy, whether it was collaboration, just listening, and making decisions based on all the information available. Those were all skill sets I learned during my time in the service that I'm able to bring with me into education.
So I'm the mother of a senior boy, and I'm thinking about your mother and, seven children, and you go off to the Marines. That had to have been a kind of rock the world of your whole family when you were gone, and you were really gone, right?
There were absolutely some tears shed. It wasn't maybe a popular decision at the time, but I think looking back on it, my mom would tell you it was probably the best thing I could have done. You don't know that at the time,
Right.
but then it also gave me other great opportunities. The GI Bill is really, as one of seven children, there wasn't necessarily a college fund for me to rely on. So the GI Bill is really what allowed me to get through my undergrad and halfway through my master's. So it really, I don't know where I would be without that opportunity.
Right. Well, I'm thrilled that we can talk about this as part of your story because, we all kind of acknowledge one of the problems with the education system is many students think it's college or nothing.
Correct.
And it's not. It's so not. And so I think it's wonderful that we have an educator in Manor Haven Elementary School who took a path that still led
Yeah.
to such a wonderful career, but started in a way that isn't necessarily traditional.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to actually present that at non-traditional paths after high school, and speaking with some of the students, it was eye-opening for them to see that while this is a detour on a journey, it can still lead you back to where you ultimately want to go, whether it's
Right.
education or anything else.
Right, right. So then after your military service, my goodness, you decided you were going to be an educated human being, clearly, because
Right.
you've earned a degree in history and secondary education from St. Joseph's University, a master's in educational technology from Hofstra University, certifications in school building and district leadership from the College of St. Rose, and it sounds like you've also completed your doctorate in educational leadership at Liberty University. So quite a pedigree. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about clearly an insatiable desire to learn and how you managed it all.
Sure. It's funny because, like I said, I was not a strong student in high school. And maybe it was the lack of discipline or the lack of a clear vision to kind of understand where I was going. But I was confident as I was separating from the military. I was looking for that next step, being afforded education, right? It's the most powerful tool in the world. So having the opportunity to pursue an education, and I had just the most amazing social studies teachers. I was so fortunate. I had a passion for history. My plan was to teach history for the next 30 years, be a college professor of history, and I took some detours. So one of the things I was able to do was, when I separated from the military, I was already 21 years old. Most of my friends had graduated now. They're moving into their career fields, many of them in education. They were already starting to get those first subbing opportunities. And there was a piece of me that felt like I was behind and I had to play catch up. And even though I didn't, it was certainly a desire to get into that next step. So I was able to complete my undergraduate's degree in 2.5 years, really big semesters, lots of credits, summer sessions. But ultimately, it was because I knew where I wanted to be. So how could I get there? And I was very fortunate that through my student teaching experience, I was afforded other opportunities, had great experiences. And when I completed my student teaching work on a Friday, I was brought back as a permanent substitute that Monday.
Hmm.
So I got really right into it. Maybe I just hit the field at the right time.
Well, or you were very good and they're like, the dude has to come back here on Monday. Like go offer him a job. And you were probably like, yes, a paycheck. That would be wonderful.
That is correct. That first paycheck, while it was small, it felt good.
Yes, yes. And then you know, a lot of people get education degrees, but fewer get a master's. And clearly educational technology is an interest area, and even fewer go after that doctorate. So tell us about that decision.
Yeah, so I was, like I said, I just, being in the right place, the right time, working hard and making those connections. So from that first subbing opportunity, I was then able to move into a full-time probationary position in New York City. I was working at Title I school as a sixth and seventh grade social studies teacher, class sizes of 31 that first year. But it was everything that you could hope and wish for. And it was an amazing school, amazing opportunities for myself, for the kids. And this was right when every classroom was getting smart boards. Now it's
Mm.
Epson boards, Apple TVs, and I knew I wanted to pursue that master's degree. In New York State, it is a requirement, and there's a couple different ways to go about it. To me, it was really important that I had something that can continue to contribute to my own professional growth, that can make me an asset, because at the time, social studies teachers was a very saturated market, and it still is.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, educational technology and kind of projecting forward, where's the world going? This is before one-on-one initiatives, things of that nature, way before COVID. So having that background during remote learning was such an asset. So I pursued my master's at Hofstra University in educational technology, and really what it was time really focused on how can we take the curriculum and what's the best ways to use technology embedded in the curriculum. Spend a lot of time looking at the SAMR rubric, right? We're not just substituting work, we're replacing, we're redefining. And 10 years, over 10 years later, it's still work that I use and still conversations I'm having to this day. So it was a really great opportunity to do that. And then had my master's. I was coaching, working hard, thought I was done. And my principal at the time was just an absolute amazing leader. And she kept encouraging me to get my admin degree, just kept pushing me. And I kept telling him, like, nope, I love what I do. I get to lead PDs, especially technology staff development PDs. Like, this is my sweet spot. I'm very happy here. I was coaching at the time, as all social studies teachers I feel like do. And really, she was persistent and she kept pushing me, almost to the point where I think I applied just so she would stop pushing me.
Right.
And so I completed my school building leadership program first, and she promoted me. She just kept pushing me to seek out those opportunities. So when I finished that program, I told her, I'm like, I'm good. She would send me openings in local districts. Hey, you should go apply for this. Go get some experience. And I did. So in New York City, just to the east of us is Port Washington. It's a Long Island Public School District. I applied to the middle school assistant principal opening, thinking it would be an interview experience. I'd go around or two, really get to. I hadn't interviewed in probably 10 years at that point, and they kept moving me along to different steps. So after about 3 weeks of interviews, I realized I'm like, I might have an opportunity to actually do this. So I was as shocked. My principal at the time was not shocked. She encouraged me to go out there, spread my wings. And I've been able to do that since, really with her guidance originally.
Right, right. I had that same principal, not literally, but the same one. She just said, "Sorry, kid, this is your destiny. You can either listen to me or not." As a matter of fact, I went to her and said, "I actually don't think I'll go the principal route. I think I'll go the counselor route." And she's like, "Oh, that's sure. I'll write you a letter, but that's not where you're going to end up." And darn it, she was right. Here we are.
It's amazing how really great leaders see what you don't see yet. And that's
Exactly.
what I try to keep in mind when, I just had a staff member, one of my teachers complete their admin program, and I find myself now pushing her along, realizing how much I would miss her and how much our students will miss her, but knowing it'll have a greater impact in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah, I try and pay it forward as well because, when someone taps you on the shoulder, it's such an honor and you want to give that forward too. So, you
Absolutely.
spent a nice hunk of your career at the middle school level. So, clearly you're a really positive guy with a lot of energy and excitement about being an educator. What are some of the important lessons you learned from being a teacher, and in particular a middle school teacher?
Yeah, so I think one of the things I learned really is middle school, there's a reason why it's usually the shortest time of education. I've been in three different middle schools. All three of them were grades 6, 7, 8. I think in all three middle schools, there's always the conversation, does sixth grade belong here? Is the
Yep.
junior high model better? Really, lessons you learn is that the curriculum's not everything at the middle school level. I know there's still state tests and there's, standards we have to meet, but especially when they come in as sixth graders, they are absolutely still kids.
Mhm.
They're just big fifth graders. So one of the things I would say I would learn is that you have to put the kid first. And I know it sounds cliche to say relationships, but the amount of time you spend either team building or building that classroom environment comes back to you tenfold. You're able to get so much more done. So that's the first piece. And really, students want to be engaged. Now, I can't speak for my colleagues who teach other subjects areas, but when I was teaching social studies, it was very natural to make it engaging. I feel like it's one or two ways. It's either really engaging or really boring. So whenever you have opportunity to, hey, let's have a debate. Middle school kids love to talk. They love to argue. Let's do that, right? Let's find ways to bring them in and build them a ramp into the curriculum so they can really sink their teeth into it. And if you have that relationship and they're engaged, you'll be able to go really far at that middle school level. There's still going to be issues. There'll still be middle school drama. That's part of the experience. But having the kids trust and having a relationship with them will bring you really far.
Right. It's so true. I spent 14 years of my own career at the middle school, and I think it's such a critical age for the adults to understand that it isn't necessarily about the curriculum. And of course that's important. I'm not diminishing that, but I see nationally this real push to kind of shove career workforce education at the middle school. And I understand why, but I also understand that for many 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds, that is not what they're thinking about. And as a matter of fact, it can add such a layer of anxiety if you're 12 and somebody's saying, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? It's a mistake to not understand where they really are in their own journey.
And I would, just and to piggyback on that, I think the idea of giving them different avenues of success, right? That's really such a big umbrella term, like opportunity and success, but not every child is going to be your accelerated math, double honors. Not every student's going to be amazing at the music, right? So whether it's through athletics, clubs, your technology program, STEM programs, art, having a wide variety of offerings for them so they can find what their passion is.
Mhm.
Really feel like that's so much what middle school is about. And it's really one of those things I think I'm trying to bring with me at the elementary level to start those conversations even earlier. Because otherwise that fifth to sixth grade jump it's massive.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Everyone talks about the power of data-driven instruction, but how do you actually get the right insights and know the best next steps? The secret is IXL. IXL helps you easily assess performance and determines the best path forward for each student. Whether you need data for benchmarking or intervention planning, IXL can do it all. And IXL doesn't stop at assessments. It also provides you with everything else your school needs, from a standards-aligned K-12 curriculum to actionable analytics. IXL's online learning and teaching platform is research proven to improve student outcomes and is used by 95 of the top 100 U.S. school districts. If you also want to start driving real progress, get started today at ixl.com/PM.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jen Schwanke, and I will be hosting a summer masterclass to be held on June 3rd at 11 a.m. that focuses on managing school conflict. If you are tired of school conflict throwing you off track, or if you wish you could turn those tense moments into opportunities for growth, you'll want to join our high-impact virtual session. It's designed for principals, aspiring leaders, and teacher leaders. So get ready to ditch the avoidance and embrace conflict head-on through a deep dive into understanding types of conflict, mastering the anticipate, analyze, act cycle, tackling common school conflicts, empowering others, and even confronting your own role in conflict. This session will be a dynamic, interactive experience providing practical tips you can use today. So transform your school culture and become a conflict resolution powerhouse. Register at williamdparker.com/guide. And I hope to see you all there. Thank you. Right. So thank you for teeing that up so beautifully. What did lead you to elementary school? You were a middle school assistant, I believe, right? And then led to elementary. So walk us through that change.
Sure. So I was on year 4 of being a middle school assistant principal. I was tenured. I just completed my doctorate, and that's it. I could have stayed there for another 25 years and been very happy. But I started to get that itch. What else is there? This also fully coincided with my daughter starting kindergarten and doing those kindergarten tours and being a mystery reader for her and getting into her building. Now in my district, we have 5 elementary schools. I had really great colleagues at the elementary level. And again, they were like, you should check out elementary. You would really love it. So I started dipping my toe in there a little bit, realizing there's a lot I had to learn and a lot I didn't know what I didn't know. I'd been secondary my entire career. All my training was secondary. But I knew I had been in middle school long enough that I was ready for that change. So I had spent a good portion of 6 months interviewing in different districts, getting very far in each time. And my poor central office must have got several reference calls. And then something happened to open up in our district, and I was given the opportunity to serve as the intern.
It's really creepy how much our experiences are mirrored. That was the same. I was middle school all the way, and then I got asked to be an interim, and the rest is history because I spent a lot of time at an elementary after that. So I assume you're no longer the interim, right?
That is correct. So I was the intern. The original plan was for me to be the intern. And I started on August 17th, 2 weeks before school opened, had to hit the ground running. The plan was for me to be the intern. They would open up the search around the holidays, and then by January, we'd appoint, and whoever had that opportunity, that would be, we'd go forward. Certainly had a lot to learn, but by November of that year, we had gone through the process. I think I had built enough trust between the staff and the community and central office that I was given this amazing opportunity to lead this building in our district, in our community.
Nice. So yours, I can tell you have such affection for your school and your school's community. So it's a K-5 school, right? Serving 500 students. You're in the Port Washington School District on Long Island, New York. And you had told me in preparation for this recording that it's a Title I school and very culturally diverse student population. So tell us a little bit more about Manor Haven.
Sure. So 500 students, I believe actually maybe 501 today. We're the
Okay.
second largest elementary school in the district. We are a Title I school. I have 30% of my students are free and reduced lunch. So wide variety of socioeconomics. My students also come from one of the most expensive zip codes in the country, Sands Point. So I have a wide variety of socioeconomic. I'm also about 28% Hispanic students. I'm also 33% ENL students. So very wide diversity. To give you a little context to that, in 500 students, I have 6 ENL teachers. When I was at the middle school in our district of 1,200 students, I had 6 ENL teachers. So just to provide a little context in terms of the student population we are serving here,
Right.
and really working hard with the community to address all of our needs.
So you talked to me again in preparation of this recording about how much you value inclusive learning communities. So talk to our listeners about what that means to you and maybe give an example of what this might mean to your staff and your community.
Yeah, so when I was given the opportunity and the honor to lead this building, really the first, I would say, 6 months was asking lots of questions. Because even though I was already in the district, it was one of the 5 elementary schools that fed into the middle school. So I had to get really granular, complete needs assessment with my parents, first and foremost, my staff. I even had the opportunity to speak to my 5th graders at the time who are now moved on, but you've been here 6 years. What's working? What's not working? Where do you see the needs? And a lot of things kind of surface from those conversations. First and foremost, the access to books. We don't think about that. We take that for granted. We have a school library. It's used. Absolutely. Kids go there. But our school building physically is located the furthest from our public library compared to the other elementary schools. So really for the last year, we've been working on an initiative of how do we get more books in the hands of our children. And my PTA is amazing. We've worked really hard together. And I'm proud if I can to share 2 different ways we were doing that. At our recent book fair, we made sure every child, whether they were free, reduced, or not, walked away with at least 2 books. And my PTA, through a combination of scholastic dollars and fundraising, supported that. So 500 students, we had over 1,000 books that were given to children, no questions asked. The second way, and we're really excited, we just did a grand opening last week. We're the first building in the district to do it, a book vending machine.
Oh,
Completely token system. And students who demonstrate positive behavior, they're role models. We have a whole PBIS program called the Manor Haven Marbles. They get an opportunity to earn a token. They put the token in, and every token's good for 1 book.
wow. That is beautiful. So my next question was going to be about some exciting initiatives happening at your school. So that's a fun one. I've not heard that yet. So students can earn books. I mean, my goodness, that's so much better than earning Skittles or earning whatever it is, candy, some sort of a prize that goes away and maybe isn't all that healthy.
At first, I had a few students who might have been a little disappointed that it wasn't a candy machine because it looks just like a regular vending machine. But I had this really adorable first grader. It's like, oh, this is so much better. Books last longer. Like, that's amazing. And working with my PTA, working with our literacy team, they did a really great job of books in Spanish, books that are appropriate for kindergartners, chapter books for fifth graders. I mean, again, right, stepping from a middle school into an elementary level, there's so much I didn't know. So I've really learned to lean on other people and trust the process and give them that ability to make decisions that are best for our kids.
Right. So who is it, the PTA that manages this and keeps it stocked and thinks about what kind of books should be in the vending machine?
So they supported a lot of the funding for it, in combination with some grant writing they helped with, in combination with some school funds. They really helped promote it. They helped get kids invested in it. We had a whole big kickoff. They supplied all the balloons. They supplied, like, we really made a really special event. And then what we did is we were able to budget for the next 5 years of books, through the school budget process and working with the scholastic dollars that they earned from the book fair. So it's just one of the ways that leveraging our community, to improve access and opportunity for our kids.
Oh, that's incredible. I want to, when we're done recording, I'm going to give you a contact that I think will be important for you. So
Awesome.
you mentioned a couple of other initiatives you're thinking about. Tell us about the block schedule at your elementary that's going to focus on intervention.
Yeah, so when I came here to Manor Haven, now my previous experience at two middle schools was scheduling. And there's a lot to learn, lots of different layers, but elementary scheduling was new to me. And like I said, I started on August 17th. The schedule was already done. It was handed to me, and I didn't understand it. I couldn't read it. So there was a lot for me to learn. And there had been a lot of past practices that were in place for 20 years when the building originally only serviced about 300 students, maybe even less than that. So one of the things I identified pretty quickly is there was no set time for pullouts. Services didn't start right away. And as a classroom teacher, the pullout services were really a revolving door of, and once I started doing observations, I saw it even more. First 10 minutes, two students left to go to this service. 10 minutes later, two more went to this service. But when you take a step back, they were getting the same service by two different teachers. I'm like, well, why is that? So I just had to keep asking questions, keep peeling back the layers. And one of the things I did was I put together a scheduling committee because in my middle school experience, I know scheduling is all hands on deck. They had shared with me that scheduling was something they always did in June at this building. And I'm like, that we can't do that. Right now, if we want to change our culture and change the way we're going to do things. So we started in January of last year. We had representatives from every grade level, every service. We did a training together, and we really talked about what our vision was and what's the best for our kids. And that was always the first and the primary thing, was putting the kids first. And even I would say we probably had conversations for maybe a month, even about what grades should eat together. And it sounds like it wouldn't be that important, but it was so important because we had every grade eating by themselves, but our cafeteria could fit two grades together. So we had to open up other time in our day for the students, to have other services.
Well, and you hit on such a problem that it's really prevalent across the country, and that is so many times we do things because we've always done them that way. And every year in June we pull out the schedule, we dust it off a little, and we replace the teacher name if there's a new teacher, and then we go on about our way. But so many times we don't really examine it and say, wait, you know what we could do differently, and that it would be really good for kids. And so my next logical question is, undoubtedly there were staff members who were a little resistant to change from this new guy. So how did you navigate that?
So a lot of transparency and a lot of communication. As part of the need assessment, that was the staff had identified communication and the schedule as the two biggest barriers to success. So, okay, communication, weekly newsletter, that's easy. We still do that every Friday, 2 o'clock, comes out in their email. It's just a Google document that keeps a running list of everything we're doing the next week. The scheduling was a much larger task, and that's when I really need that committee, work through the committee. Everyone was represented, and really identifying three very clear goals. What's best for our students, maximizing our tier one instruction, and making sure all of our students got all the services they needed. Those were our goals. How do we get there? And then how do we present that information? So we had 6 months to work on this, and that's really what made it successful because it allowed us time to go back to the staff, get more feedback, revamp, revise. It was not a mystery surprise the first day of school. I want to say at the June 3rd faculty meeting, we presented all of our work. We still had 2 more weeks of feedback before school ended for the year. And there was absolutely some trepidation coming into September. If I said I slept the night before school opened, that would be a lie, because you're never quite sure what a schedule is going to do until you actually live it. But maybe the most eye-opening thing for the staff, and I had shared this with the entire faculty, was at the middle school level, you're very used to seeing a student-facing schedule. That's not the case at elementary. So I took a student who had multiple services, and we really wrote down what their student-facing schedule was. And when you did that, you realized their contact time with their classroom teacher was maybe 40 minutes a day because they had reading support, math support, E&L, lunch, special. So we had to maximize and really increase that tier one, that first line of defense classroom teacher. Once we saw that perspective, we started to get some people that were in agreement and moving towards our direction.
Right, right. And you said it sounds like it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but here's why it is. A schedule is you're literally making decisions for how people, grown-ups and children, are going to spend their day, how they're going to spend their time and what you value. What you put where you put money and where you put time. That's what you value.
It's so deeply personal when you're working on scheduling. And one of the things I've learned about scheduling now for 5 or 6 years, you can do anything, but you cannot do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to prioritize. And I know this grade level really wants this, but we also have to do this. So how do you balance that? And then having those really hard conversations of here's why we made a decision.
Right.
Working through a team, it's a little easier to get the feedback. And it's easier to know it wasn't just the new principal coming in and changing how the game's played and redrawing the lines. This was a
Right.
concerted effort by a group of dedicated educators who had been in
Right.
this building 10, 15, 20 years. They saw the vision set forward, and we had to push towards that vision.
Right. And some of them probably lost sleep the night before school too, but because it's a change and we
Correct.
don't like our cheese moved. We really don't like that. So there's a lot of trust that's kind of incorporated in that as well. So my next question is, how do you continue to develop as a leader? And what I'm hearing you say, you're kind of answering that question amongst your other answers because it seems like you are an ongoing learner, but tell us, your colleagues across the country and really the world, how you stay committed to developing as a leader.
So first and foremost, podcast. I have a 45-minute commute, so I am a voracious listener of podcasts. I think it's that snippet, right? I know you just started the Monday check-ins. I forget the title. It just started. I apologize. What's the title again?
We're calling them Monday Matters, which
Monday
is just
Matters.
such a word play on Principal Matters. Yeah.
So between the Principal Matters podcast and but any other podcast that's out there, that's not even just in education, but in leadership in general, try and take it all in.
Right.
Audiobooks too, because of my commute, it allows me that time, I feel like, to balance the learning, right? But also with the leading. And really going to the different conferences, really being invested in my own professional growth. And I have brilliant teachers in this building who have been teaching, let's say, reading for 20 years and being humble enough to say, I don't know the first thing about early literacy. What do I need to know? What PD should I attend? Point me in the right direction, and then being willing to listen and learn from them.
Right.
Because even though I may have the title of principal and I'm the leader, I need to model that I'm also the lead learner.
Exactly. And so many, I'm actually teaching some students right now, and they said, we don't think we could ever lead in a grade level band that we haven't taught. And I said, oh my goodness, no, it's the opposite. As a matter of fact, it's better if you don't go in thinking you know everything. You want to go in and be like, teach me. I need to spend time in this classroom. I need you to tell me what you know because I don't know it.
And I found, and like I said, even though I was already in the district and I had a positive reputation, they didn't know who I was.
Right.
I'm coming from the other side of town. But they were open and I got invited into classrooms and it allowed us to start building that trust quickly. And non-evaluative. I just want to come in
Right.
and see what you do. I don't know what morning meeting looks like for first graders.
Right.
I don't know how you're teaching letters to kindergartners other than what I'm doing at home with my daughter. Or
Oh
asking
my,
that question like, hey, how does this work? What's this curriculum?
right.
And really trusting the leaders, the teacher leaders around me, and having those real tough conversations of what's best for our kids and saying, I'm not the reading expert, but I'm trusting you. Let's come to a collaborative decision.
Right, right. And I think it was probably very helpful that your daughter was about that same age too, because then you could start to put together the language we use at elementary, because it's
Yes,
very different than middle and high, especially even
very.
I remember my first day at elementary, I'm like, they keep talking about friends. Like,
Yes,
hi friends. And I'm like,
yes.
Where's the friends? Hi friend. It's just different language and it's fine, but you have to adjust to it if you're a secondary person going into the elementary world.
The morning car loop and bus loop, getting the
Mhm.
high fives and the hugs.
Mhm.
I used to have middle school kids who would barely look up out of their hood. Hey, good morning. Oh,
I
yeah, it's
know.
morning. And
I
then now I have
know.
kindergartners that run up and grab me and hug me. I'm
Oh,
like, this is the best job in the world.
yeah. The knee hug. They come at
Yes,
you and they like tackle your knees and you're like, "Oh my goodness, good morning."
yes. And truthfully, one of the things I was concerned about is when I would make time to maybe go play basketball with the eighth graders, I was
Yeah.
starting to lose.
Yeah.
I had to find younger students in easier competition. So
Right. It's
so
all about winning. All about
elementary was a good move.
That's good. So just in a minute or less, tell us about some of your hopes and dreams as an educator or as a dad or as a husband or whatever. What are you thinking about?
Oh wow, what something I have not figured out how to do yet is balance the two.
Mhm.
And I'm sure I'm not the only principal that does that. I still find myself there at 9, 10 o'clock at night, checking emails, looking at the next day's call outs, in my mind going to sleep. How am I going to cover this class? How do you fund that trip? And that's always something that I'm still struggling with. People that I look up to as mentors says that will come with time.
Right.
Um, so trying to be a better dad, right? Trying to balance those two hats you have to wear. And then really for this building, my goal is to just continuously improve. There's 5 elementary schools in the building and I'm in the district. And I tell my staff and I tell my parents, I'm not competing with the other 4 schools. I just want to be better than we were yesterday, last
Right.
week, and a year ago. Because at the end of the day, those small incremental changes will make our building the best building it can be. So, increasing those literacy scores by getting books in the hands of kids, supporting teachers with new curriculum, getting them the support, the PD they need, and dealing with the facility issues that I walked in my first year. Just what facility issues, what building level issues can I work on?
Right.
And building a culture that thrives and that supports every learner. That's the goal, right? That's the dream goal. So
Right.
if I can improve this community, if I can support the students while still being a good dad, that would be the top tier prize for me.
Right. That's excellent. And you know what? I hear you on the balance thing. I think I've given up. I think I'm going to start using the term work-life integration, not work-life balance, because it's all,
Thank you.
it's when it's who you are, your daughter and your son and your wife, they will incorporate themselves into those threads too. So, hey, tell our listeners how they can reach you if they have questions or they want to know more.
Sure. Always excited to reach out, right? That's how we learn. I am still on Twitter or X as we call it now. It is simply at Eric__Mace. There's 2 underscores in there. Certainly shoot me a tweet, a DM. You can find us on Instagram, my school at Manor Haven, PW, Manor Haven PW. Certainly reach out. We post a lot. We really are about getting the great things that our kids and our teachers are doing out there public. Or you can simply email me, Eric, ERIC, .Robert, ROBERT, .Mace @gmail.com. I'm always happy to connect. I'm always looking for other leaders because when we all work together, right, a rising tide raises all ships. And that's really the level of work and collaboration that I have found to be the most beneficial for me and everybody.
Excellent. Okay. And to our listeners, all of that contact information will be on the show notes on Principal Matters, the website. So thank you so much, Dr. Mace, for your time. I truly, truly appreciate it. And I can't wait to show your energy and enthusiasm to our listeners.
Jen, thank you so much. I'm so glad. I hope that someone takes away something from this because I've gotten so much from you and Will, and I cannot thank you guys enough for everything that you do.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Principal Matters.